Hi everybody, and welcome back to another Shearer Smokes. And you join me on quite a pleasant January morning. And well, it would be quite remiss of me if I wasn't to give a wee nod to our national bard, Rabbie Burns. People all over Scotland and in many parts of the world would be celebrating Burns Night. Now, I did have great plans of heading to Robert Burns' birthplace, which is in Alloway, just outside Ayr, which is only about an hour and a half car drive from where I stay. Unfortunately, the way my days off have worked, I've not had enough time to do that, so I've done the next best thing. As I'm here in Dollar, or just outside Dollar, which is my old hometown, and Burns came here to visit. Now, Burns visited here in 1787 in the month of August, and he was staying in Stirling at the time, and he had friends who lived in Harveston Castle on the Harveston estate. The castle sadly no longer exists, and the cairn behind me, which was unveiled in 1973 by the local Burns Club to commemorate Burns' visit here. The stones actually come from the castle itself, as well as some stones that were taken from the bed of the River Devon. And just over to my right is the entrance to what would have been the Harveston estate. I'll pop in a picture of that. So yeah, it's interesting that that Burns came here to visit. As I said, he had friends that stayed at Harveston Castle. He was staying in Stirling at the time and arrived here by horse, which is quite something in itself. And yeah, he spent the day here, and we know from poems and also by letters that Burns wrote that he visited the River Devon itself, and that's where we're going to head just shortly. Now, amazingly, the cairn behind me, as I said, it was unveiled in 73, and both my dad and granddad were present. There is a photograph kicking about. I think it's from a newspaper clipping. I've still to try and track that down. But both were present on the day. My granddad was a great Burns man, and I found one paper clipping where he, in the local paper, where he did the toast to the lassies at a local Burns supper, and here's the clip now. Again, it's quite a nice family connection, because as we know, Robert Burns was very active in the world of Freemasonry. As was my dad and granddad, and yeah, it's just a nice little family connection there. Where we are now is just on the main road between Dollar and the town that I now live in, Tillicoultry, so there's quite a bit of traffic going back and forth. So we're going to head off, as I said, find a quieter spot on the banks of the Devon, which gave rise to a couple of poems and also a song written by Burns. So join me there. Hi everybody, we've made it down to the banks of the Devon. Now, it's hard to pinpoint exactly where Burns would have visited. We know by his letters that he did quite a bit of touring about in this area. This stretch of river that we're on is not directly, but almost across from what would have been the Harveston estate. So it's quite feasible that they may have came and wandered along the paths here. We do know that he ventured up to the Dollar Glen towards the castle. But as you'll have known from my previous videos, that no matter where you stop on this river, you're always guaranteed to find a picturesque location. And when Burns visited in August, then there would have been a lot more greenery and flowers etc., compared today in the middle of January. But it wasn't just the scenery that caught Burns's eye. There were two young ladies connected with the harvesting estate, and as we know, Burns was a bit of a ladies' man, or to give it a more modern term, he was a bit of a player. And these two ladies, namely Charlotte Hamilton and Peggy Chalmers, he actually wrote a poem for each. In fact, Peggy, I think, was the favourite out of the two, as she had a couple of poems and a song. And Peggy did disclose later on in life that Burns did propose to her, but sadly turned him down. But the poem I'd like to read a little extract from you. It actually comes from a book that belonged to my granddad, and it's the complete works of Burns. This is the Kilmarnock edition, first printed in 1938, and I just love this book. I just love the feel of it, the smell of it even, with the leather hardback cover and the very fine paper that the verses and songs are printed on. And there's some great prints within the book as well, which I'll share within the video. So I'm going to read a little extract from The Banks of the Devon. Now, on the cairn, the plaque, where I started the video, the first two lines are actually engraved on the plaque, and they read as follows. How pleasant the banks of the clear winding Devon, with green spreading bushes and flowers blooming fair. But the bonniest flower on the banks of the Devon was once a sweet bud on the braes of the Ayr. Now that alludes to Charlotte, who came from Ayrshire. And I just love the last verse in this poem, and it reads, Let Bourbon exult in his gay gilded lilies, and England triumphant display her proud rose. A fairer than either adorns the green valleys, where Devon, sweet Devon, meandering flows. Great words by Burns, and a great description of actually how the River Devon does actually meander and flow down into the Forth at Stirling. I do love a bit of Burns. As I said, my granddad was very heavily into Burns, as was my dad, who, when he wasn't appearing on stage, my dad would do a lot of after dinner speaking, and he would do a lot of Burns suppers, and following in my granddad's footsteps, he would do the Toast to the Lassies. Now, one of my favourite poems is Tam O'Shanter. The tale of Tam O'Shanter is a great one. It describes an evening where Tam has been out on the town with his pals. He's been drinking down the boozer, he's had a few whiskies, and it's time for him to head home, probably to the wrath of his wife. Now, as Tam rides home on his horse Maggie, he passes the local kirk, and to his amazement, he hears a raucous noise coming within, so he decides to investigate. And on looking through the window, Tam is amazed by the sight of a group of witches cavorting and dancing inside the kirk, and there's the devil himself playing the bagpipes. Now, the scene is described as a collection of old hags. In amongst these hags, there is one young beauty of a witch named Nanny. And this vision totally amazes Tam and captivates him, mainly because she's wearing a piece of clothing known as a short shift, which is a type of nightdress, which was very revealing. And Tam, overcome with emotion, shouts out, "Well done, Cutty Sark!" Now, Cutty Sark was the nickname given to such a garment. But on doing so, he of course alerts the witches to his presence, and they make chase. Now, myth has it that witches can't pass running water, so Tam on Maggie rides towards the old brig and makes his escape. But the witches chase after him with Nanny at the forefront, and just as he crosses the brig, Nanny makes one last gasp to try and grab Tam, but only succeeds in grabbing the tail of Maggie, which comes away in her hands, and Tam and Maggie make their escape safely back home, probably vowing never to drink again. Now, interestingly, John Willis, the owner of Cutty Sark, who was a Scot himself. He chose the name for the ship from the poem, and he chose the figurine of Nanny the Witch to use as the figurehead for the ship, and here's a picture of it now. I also have a great print of the bridge scene from the poem, which was in the book I just read from, and here's a picture of that. It's nice to know that a man of Rabbie Burns' ilk came to visit my hometown. And celebrating that today, I've got my Peterson Rusticated Tankard, and in the bowl, well, I've gone for the Peter Stokkebye Highland whisky, which is black Cavendish, Burley, Virginia, with a whisky flavouring. And again, another first for me, and a big thank you to Smoking Cardboard Steve. One of his samples he sent out to me, and Steve, thanks very much. It's going really, really well. It's a perfect day. There's a slight wind, but it's pretty calm on the water, and it's just a nice day for a bit of Burns poetry and a nice smoke. I'm going to have to relight because I've been chatting quite a bit, so allow me to do that. So yeah, it's smoking very well, and to complement it, I'm not on the hot chocolate today. I've actually got a flask of coffee, but with it being Burns week, I've decided to toast them with a little dram out the hip flask. And in the hip flask, I've gone with, if I can find it, this was a gift given to me at Christmas by my good friend Carnegie, who's actually coming over to the Shearer Cigar Lounge later tonight, and we're going to have a nice cigar and a little dram to celebrate Burns, belated though it may be. So in the flask, I've gone for the Monkey Shoulder. Yeah, so Monkey Shoulder, it's an interesting whisky. It's it's a blended whisky. It's made up of 3 single malts, all coming from the Speyside area. Now the name Monkey Shoulder comes from a nickname which was used to describe an injury, because back in the day, when the malted barley used to be turned by hand, the maltmen that used to do the job, you would use big wooden paddles, and they would suffer from an injury strain of the shoulder, which would cause it to hang lower than the other, hence the term monkey shoulder. So that's what's in the flask today, and here's good health to you all, and remembering Burns. Now that is nice. It's quite a zesty flavour, a little hint of vanilla, a little bit of spice, but very smooth, and that is tasty, yes. And working well with the Peter Stokkebye Highland whisky as well. So yeah, so that's been my little nod to Rabbie Burns, which I hope you've enjoyed. As always, thank you for joining me and tuning in. It's coming to the end of the week now. I've got a couple of days off, so looking forward to getting out and about, depending on the weather. It's been great today, so hopefully that will continue on. I hope you've all had a great week and enjoy the upcoming weekend. And I'm going to leave you with a little quote again from my Book of Burns. And I like this one because it kind of sums up my feelings towards this pipe community and of course the cigar community, where I've met nothing but kindness, generosity, and that great feeling of friendship and brotherhood, which Burns wrote about quite eloquently. And with that in mind, I'm going to read the last part of Burns's poem, For All That and All That. Then let us pray that come it may, as come it will, for all that sense and worth all o'er the earth may bear the gree and all that. For all that and all that, it's coming yet, for all that man to man, the world o'er, shall brothers be, for all that. And on that note, my name's Shearer. Enjoy your smokes.